All right, and welcome everyone. It is great to see you all here online virtually. Greetings from the hilltop. I want to welcome you all to today's webinar, Parsing the Analytics Skill Imbalance Between Industry and the Business School, part of our 2021 Graduate Alumni Reunion Virtual Programming Series. I'm Lauren Apsella, Associate Director of Alumni Relations for Georgetown McDonough, and I will be facilitating today's webinar. I just have a few tips and tricks I want to share with you all. One, this webinar broadcast will be recorded and then will be shared with you the next few days. Our panelists will take questions at the end of the webinar. So please send in your questions as you have them throughout the webinar using the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're having any technical difficulties or other issues, you can also submit those concerns to me via the Q&A function as well. Now I want to turn it over to Sudipta Desmohapatra, Academic Director of our MSBA program. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Lauren, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this amazing group of panelists that's here today who are going to talk about parsing the analytics skill imbalance between industry and the business school. So I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce everyone that is a part of the panelist group. And so as I call your names, if you can just wave and say hello, that would be great. And then we'll move on to our questioning. So first, I'm just going in no particular order. To my left, I have Jennifer Farasi. She is EVP Data and Analysis at Digitas. Next, we have Yuriko Horvath. She is Senior Solutions Architect Manager at Amazon Web Services. And then we have Jay Rosenthal. He is Senior Data Engineer at Facebook. And then we have Bella Wong, Director Loyalty Analytics and Client Insights at Sephora. And we have two academics with us here that are directly involved in analytics programs at McDonough. I have Simon Blanchard. Simon is Associate Professor at the McDonough School of Business. And Dr. Gregory Lyon. Greg is Assistant Teaching Professor and Assistant Director for the MSBA program at McDonough School of Business. So thank you everyone for being here. And without further ado, we will actually move on to our questioning. So I want to ask, especially, folks from the industry first, and then I'll move into the folks at academia. What is the role of analytics within your organization? If very briefly, you can talk a little bit about that. We'll start with Yuriko.
Sure. So I'm going to just start off to say that analytics, and we have leadership principles, but I'm going to just say this. We have a combination of our write a lot, the idea that sometimes you have to have a theory, but no matter what we do, we're also reflecting on data and validating any decision that we make in our business through analytics. So, and this should drive all business decision making at all levels of every organization, from what teams do to what individuals do, all the way up to pivots that happen in the organization. So it's kind of used everywhere. Let me know if you want me to get more granular, but again, we use it for everything.
Okay, that's great. Jay, do you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah, Facebook is a very data-driven organization, and a fun thing about it is, since we build products for half the world, more or less, you can be very data-driven. So I work on a product team where we launch features, and anyone on the team can come up with the idea for a feature, whether that's a product manager, an engineer, a data scientist. You pitch the feature, you see, do you think it might have a big enough impact? And then you build it, you push it out to people and see if it has the positive impact for your metrics and for your users that you expect. So, and everything we're doing in product at Facebook is very data-driven to make sure we're improving that experience for our end users.
Awesome. Jennifer?
Yeah, I would say we use it in a similar way to what Yuri and Jay were talking about. Analytics really does play a foundational role in all of the different things that we do as an agency for our clients, starting from the sort of idea, right, and what we want to put out into the world, the insights that help to drive decisions, and then measuring the outcome. And then that's sort of a cyclical nature, right? It's a component to how we move forward, both our own business as well as business for our clients.
Awesome. And then finally, Bella at Sephora. Bella, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, coming from a non-tech sector, I think, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So coming from the non-tech sector, I think analytics is a little bit different. We're a retail organization, and when our new CEO came on board about 2.5 years ago, he really wanted to transform Sephora into a much more data-driven organization. And so we took the analytics organization and actually placed it right under him. So he is driving the data analytics as part of the day-to-day decision-making, the impact decisions, and all of that. And I think, and Sephora really strives to be a data-driven organization. I think we deal a lot in our data analytics organization, a lot with people who are not as knowledgeable about data and about analytics and quantitative in particular. So we do a lot of not only analytics, but also storytelling and trying to, bridge the gap between the business and the data.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm going to go to our two academics here and ask them about from the McDonough School of Business perspective, where does analytics programs, as we consider how we are, what we are teaching to our students, where does that fall? So maybe Simon, you can talk a little bit about that first.
Sure. I think there's a variety across most of the programs. I think in business school, we have coverage of analytics. I think some of the programs are more analytics centered than others, like the Masters of Business Analytics that Greg will probably speak more about. But I think even in the MBA program, we have coverage of analytics as it pertains to often the interactions between business and analytics itself. And so in our programs like the MBA program, we have a certificate for customer analytics and insight. And a program like that has the goal of helping students that are less quantitative to get their feet wet, but also to bring the students that are more quantitative to begin with, not just more quantitative skills, but also the integration into business practices so that they can understand things like business experimentation, translation of technical needs, so that they can speak to not just the business executives that judge the P&L at the end of the quarter, but also the ones that are product managers that need to implement those features. So it's a little bit there that we're trying to straddle that boundary between technical and non-technical in most of our programs.
Awesome, thank you, Simon. And then Greg, do you want to talk a little bit about what we are doing in the business analytics program?
Sure, thanks. And I think Bella's comment really segues quite nicely into that a little bit. So in the business analytics, we kind of do what Simon's describing in the MBA, but a much greater focus on the skills and the technical skills, programming, data analysis with applied business scenarios and content. And what we're seeing is really kind of what Bella alludes to, is that there's a really significant need in that middle ground for people who can really understand business processes and problems, but also see the other side of the kind of analytics space and be able to bridge that gap and bring parties together. So they're kind of understanding both sides of it, the quantitative element, as well as how those decisions can be implemented, how they can be evaluated, and so on. So the MSBA is really kind of focused on building those skills, as well as building that kind of bridge or translator role for students.
Great, thank you. So that segues very nicely to my next question, which is, as you think about, especially folks from the industry, as you think about the data talent that you need within your organization, what are some of the top skills you're seeking in an analytics graduate? So I'm first going to go to Jennifer. You want to talk about what you're looking for?
Sure. It actually really ranges depending on which part of the analytics organization we're talking about. We have a really robust data science team, in which case we're looking for more foundational technical skills and things like R and Python and SQL, among others. Someone who's in more of a general analytics role, the skills that we need there are more of, I think someone called it a data translator, right? It's the person who understands the numbers, they understand where they come from, but they also understand what they mean and how to actually apply them in a real world business scenario. So much of what we do is about more than just measuring the effectiveness of marketing. It's actually about measuring the effectiveness of business. and using data, a foundational set of data to drive business decisions. And that's a really important role as we're looking to add people to that talent group.
Great. Does anybody else from the industry want to add to that or say something different? I'm going to give you guys a chance.
Yeah, I can talk from Sephora's point of view. Actually, all of our analytics organizations within Sephora, we basically use raw data from our database. So we all have to be pretty much experts at SQL. We do a lot of Python, we do R, and then we also do a lot of data visualizations, because that really helps, bridge the gap between the quantitative and the business, right? So Tableau, Domo, all of those skills are extremely valued as well.
Jay or Yuriko?
Yeah, so I can just add a little bit. So totally in agreement with what everyone has said so far. But the biggest thing is something that we really pay attention to is through industry, we've gotten really good at aggregating and collecting data. Just we're really good at it, and the price of storage has gone down a lot. But with this, there has a tendency to just collect data as opposed to always driving use from data. So going to some of the things that people have said, the biggest thing is understand where will data actually add value to different parts of the organization, and starting there, thinking about, then we start from the business value that we're trying to drive, understand that first, then understanding all of the different data sources where data can come from. And then we get into the more technical side of the deal of the equation, which is pulling data in, cleansing the data, and then being able to drive towards those insights that really make a difference in the business. Because again, you can analyze forever, but until you drive that business value, until there's an outcome to show from it, then it's not holding as much value. So sometimes you have to understand the business in addition to being technical.
Right. And so maybe I'll go to Jay. You want to add to that?
I would say the one hard skill that sort of was, I think, touched on with SQL, but I would say is data modeling. Just really being clear whether you're using Excel or SQL or whatever, what is that structure of the raw data, and being able to sort of go from an aggregation back to the raw data, or understand measures and dimensions to get into Tableau terminology, or facts and dimensions or attributes and more generic terminology. That's really key, because I think what I see a lot of times is it's very easy to make basic manipulation errors and end up messing things up. And it's very easy to not understand I mean, I'm going to get into technical to say things like slowly changing dimensions, but imagine you move and your address changes not every minute, but once a year. And that kind of data modeling knowledge to then apply, whether you're using a spreadsheet or you're designing a database, will serve everyone really well. Even if they're just using Excel, or if, they do something like I did, which is transition into more of an engineering role as time goes on.
And so following up on that, Jay, what are some of the pain points that you have experienced as you guys hire analytics professionals?
Yeah, I think it depends what organization. So before I was at Facebook, I had only ever worked for startups. The largest company was a 400 person company I had worked for from business school till 8 years out was just small companies. So I think the biggest pain in all of those experiences is really it's just you're either waiting on people to do something for you, or you're trying to get data and you're translating with people. So for example, in business school, you learn about revenue recognition, and then you might have a data analyst on your team who knows SQL and Python, but has no clue what revenue recognition is. And then you have this finance person who needs data, and so the two challenges are do you teach people how to translate between them? Do you teach the finance person the more advanced skills like SQL so they can they can do their own thing. Then when you get a little more technical in there, how do you make sure like the logging is right? So, and you have good data quality by the engineers. So I think the hardest thing is sort of getting everyone to know enough outside of their domain to be able to collaborate with people in that manner. And I think that's what leads to problems. You know, the finance people like to talk in their lingo, the engineers like to talk in their lingo. And unless you're very, very explicit about what you're trying to accomplish and defining everything and what every bit of data means, you're going to have really simple miscommunication that blows things up. So the most powerful operators, I think there's like, it's the people who are outside of their domain. So the business people who know enough technical stuff to like be one step beyond spreadsheets are hugely powerful, especially in smaller organizations. You know, at Facebook, you know, we're big, right? We have whole teams really working because it's all architected to make sure non-data people have data people, right, to help them. So it's less of a problem at Facebook, at least in my product organization, but that was a huge problem in startups.
Got it. Yeah. And Jennifer, do you guys see something different or something very similar in terms of pain points when you're looking for people or looking to hire?
It depends a little bit on the level of person we're looking for. So at more junior levels, right, an entry-level analyst, for example, the pain point is more that they know the theory really well, but they don't have the experience yet with the practical application. And so that bridge is where our challenge is. And that's a training thing, right, which takes time. At the more senior levels, I would say at the mid-levels, it's very similar to what Jay described. And then at the more senior levels, one of the challenges we run into two, actually. So one is you get often senior people who just want to tell other people what to do. They don't want to actually do any work themselves. So we run into that a little bit. But bigger than that, we find they may have very, very strong core competency in the space of analytics, but they're lacking from a leadership standpoint. And that's incredibly important, especially in the agency industry, where you can have a very large team of people who you're responsible for their development, their career, mentorship, and a range of other responsibilities that we put on people. And that is often quite hard to find too. I would say right now, quite frankly, our biggest challenge is just finding people. There is way more demand than there is supply at the moment in this field, and I'm sure everyone else feels that same pain that we do.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yuriko or Bella, you guys want to ask that? Yuriko?
Yeah, so I'll chime in there that like one of the hardest things for us and the biggest pain points I've seen with especially on the customer side of things is the fact that we're hiring people probably either means that we have somebody who might have left the organization or it's just a new opening. But for the complexity of someone leaving the organization, a lot of times, even what data we have to do analytics on, that catalog of what is the information, where did the information come from, where is it useful, where could it be tied together? It's really hard. It's kind of funny. We're so good about again, what I was saying before, collecting data, but knowing what's useful information and again, where this information is, that's that catalog of like, what are our data sources? What are all the different columns of every data source? What is the interesting information in each data source? That sometimes that knowledge leaves the organization when a person leaves the organization. So one of the biggest pain points is, again, that cataloging and keeping that knowledge ever constant within the org so we can always be driving new insights.
Bella, you want to
Yeah, sure. I think that from my point of view, you know, as I was telling you about, we're kind of bridging the gap between data and quantitative people and, you know, our business partners. I think one of the things that is a skill that it was really useful to be coming to organizations like ours is really understand, I call it critical thinking, but, you know, like a lot of our business partners are going to ask us like 1,000 different questions, but really trying to, you know, the analyst in any level, really their job is to say, okay, what are you actually wanting to know? What are you going to do with it? And can we like figure out a way to get to that without answering your 1,000 different questions that, you don't really understand what you're asking for, kind of thing. So, analysis paralysis is something that is a real and constant danger. And, it's really something that it's a skill to know, like, when does 80% answer fit? When do you need help to kind of like facilitate the conversation so that you can get to the nut or the core of the matter? So you're not spinning your wheels on all of these, thousands of little questions when you can actually answer the core question. So I think one of the main skills that, we're looking for when we hire.
Yeah, and as we hear from these folks from the industry, I mean, these are some of the real challenges that we have. And so I want to go to Simon and Greg and ask you guys, as we hear these things about, especially as we hear about students knowing, having this critical thinking skills as they are thinking about analytics-based projects. How are we even preparing the students? And if we are, how are we? So Simon, maybe you can talk about you're the director of the customer analytics certificate program. So within that, are you guys teaching anything that would help the students get to the next level or not be in a problematic situation when they come up with it within these organizations?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear, about the feedback also that there's just so much data around, because I think what we try to spend a lot of time on is making sure that students can understand when the existing data is going to be sufficient and when new data is going to be needed. And so in some cases, I personally mostly teach courses that relate to business experimentation. And the reason that I mention that is that in many cases, you can spend weeks and days going through secondary data and databases trying to figure out the right answer based on data you already have, because you've been collecting it all anyway. And so we try to spend a lot of time saying, like, maybe the best data is the data that you need to get. And so, in thinking about how to leverage data that exists is one thing. Learning to create data that is going to be answered directly the question you need is also important. And so I would say there, it's being able to give them confidence that they can look at data that's being presented to them and say, this is just not going to cut it. I need to get the right data is an important skill that we try to contribute, whether it's by teaching a research design course in the MSBA or also in teaching, other courses that are more econometrics based so that people can talk about things like cause and effect and things like that. So I think we're trying to kind of stay on top of the business problem and say, when is the data that you have going to be sufficient to address your business concern, so that when to pull the plug and say, yeah, I'm going to go get new data. I'm going to hire somebody that's going to do it for me. And that's across most of the programs.
That's great. Great to hear. And then Greg, you want to add to that a comment?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, that's something that in the MSBA program, the students come in and we don't assume any background knowledge. So it's actually quite nice. We have a good diverse mix in terms of experience. Some have been in the field for 20 years working, some are relatively new. But they all start and they all begin to learn R, Python, and SQL right away, and database design, as Jay mentioned, and all these aspects that they know they may not use right away or directly or all every day, when they're out in the workforce or when they're in their full-time job, because 80% of them work full-time, but they come to appreciate it. And I think one thing Jay mentioned, appreciating how a database is designed early on is something that has really lasting implications. And similarly with Yuri, appreciating how to use certain data and decide, what to do with it and how to clean it and all the processes that go into that really makes you think about how much time you can spend on that, and therefore hopefully moves you quicker to an answer or to some kind of value that doesn't kind of dance around the issue rather and try to go right to the problem. So I think that's one thing, we really try to emphasize the core skills, but also how to allocate your time really, and how to decide what the best approach is, given, the core skills you have, Python, SQL, R, machine learning, and how to get through it, progress, not perfection, so to speak, as kind of Bella was mentioning, how to actually get somewhere and answer some questions.
Yeah, and it seems that a lot of the programs within McDonough are trying to get the students these skills. But as we think about analytics programs in particular, whether it's a certificate program or whether we're teaching a particular analytics course or we have a program, right? As we start thinking about these, one of the things that is absolute is, would ensure success of the students is to make sure that we are bridging this gap, which is perfectly, our title of this particular panel. So, so as we think about that, how do we collaborate better? I would like to know from our industry panelists first about what are your thoughts on that? How can we work best together? What are some of the strategies that we should pursue in order to make sure that the students that are graduating can be really successful in the jobs that they go to? So I'm gonna kind of leave the field open for anybody to start or comment.
I mean, I'll
You recall?
start with a little bit of silence, and then other people can think of their answer. So I'm going to say that there is no shortcut to experience and actually practically applying skills. And I'm going to say there is I feel like an never-ending amount of opportunities to hold value, whether it's something along the lines of almost like a data type hackathon with a nonprofit, something along those lines where they put out, like, let's say, de-identified data, and they're looking for insights that can be gained. They're looking for people to create new business cases of new directions a company or a let's say a department should go, and they want to field analysis to look at potential markets for, let's say, a new product. Just find ways of applying the skill set, have a hypothesis, go after it, but apply those skill sets and actually go through everything from aggregating the data, cleansing the data, go through, derive the insights and have some sort of visualization on it. So go from everywhere from, again, one side all the way to the other in terms of getting, driving the insights that you want to get, and do it for a real problem. There's so many companies, there's so many nonprofits who want people to come in and have a new perspective on what they're doing. So just volunteer for one of those opportunities, and then you can add it to your portfolio, to your resume, which makes you that much more attractive as a candidate sometime in the future, to say that there was a passion problem you went after and that you did it from the raw data all the way through pushing a business decision.
Yeah, that sounds great. And, and we would be across McDonough, different programs would be looking for that kind of collaboration. Absolutely. Others, Bella?
Yeah, so we have a internship program at Sephora. And any department can, apply to get a intern for it. The issue with analytics and internships is because most of these internships are, 3-month, 6-week, 8-week internships that it doesn't really lend itself to analytics. There's a pretty heavy learning curve when you get into an analytics organization just to understand the data structure, the architecture, the data that's in there, the nomenclature, and all of the specific KPIs that we track. And so one of the things that I've kind of proposed to my boss, and we're kind of working on, is really partnering with an organization like, Georgetown or some other academia to create kind of a, kind of undergrad, not undergrad, but like a, freshly graduate kind of bullpen where you do a lot of the, kind of the more simple, I will say, analytics, fulfill all those simple analytics needs for, 6 months or a year. And then at that point, you are, you have a head start in getting into, a full-time true analytics role. And it would be, it would benefit us because we would have a pool of talent that we can actually pull from. Because as a lot of my fellow panelists have noted, it is really hard to hire right now. There's a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. So, being able to kind of partner in creating those types of programs, I think would be really beneficial for both of our organizations.
For For sure. Sounds
I
great.
agree with Bella. I feel like we've had a number of conversations about how do we create a junior analyst, right? So one step before a full-time employee where it's basically your time to learn on the job, whatever amount of time that takes. The internships that we do offer are great, and we've gotten some really incredible talent through those programs, but they are very short-lived. I would say the other thing that could be incredibly helpful would be to do more mentorship, partnership type of things, because I think if there are people who are truly interested in going into the analytics world as a full-time career, having connectivity to some of the folks on these calls, or even, anyone who is from a different organization, is a very, very helpful way for them to get their kind of foot on the ground in terms of what's going to be expected of them and what kinds of things they're going to need to learn, that they can then go push themselves towards in their own time as they work towards graduation.
Great, thanks. Jay?
I think that last comment is key. So I got my MBA. I got an MBA, and I was a big career switcher. I was a professional musician, and then I got an MBA, and now I'm in data. So about as left to right, or however you want to do it, as you can. And I remember going to interview and not knowing SQL and getting this book. I can't remember the name, but it's a great SQL book because it started with getting data out of databases, not with creating databases. And that was really accessible to someone who knew spreadsheets. And I remember cramming and trying to be like, look, this is easy, right? It's really not that hard. But I had to prove to this person at the who was hiring me at a nonprofit in DC called Global Giving, that I could do that. And fortunately, I was able to do that. It was a great first post-business school job. But I think, for the big career switchers, or if I put myself, in someone's shoes who's 20 or something, right? And knowing what to learn is harder than learning it, right? It's the opportunity cost of that time spent to figure things out. So yeah, beyond formal internship programs, I think, really being able to connect, those students who are eager about something and just need that 30-minute conversation to know what direction to go would be, really powerful in a lot of ways.
Great. Anything that our academics want to add to that?
I'll briefly add. Yeah, so one thing I haven't mentioned, the core component of the MSBA program is the Capstone project. And this is a project, this is a part of the requirements for the degree, in which students partner with employers and organizations who have a data problem, similar to what Bella mentioned. And they have a lot of data, but they may not have the time to do it, or this is something they want to explore, but that's on the back burner, or it's something more important to them. And we partner with them with a group of students, and the students get to work with them for an 8-month period as part of their program, and meet with them on a regular basis, and really go through kind of exactly what you were describing, which is that long learning process in which they start to use a lot of the skills that they learned. So, all the programming they learned, all the data analysis they learned, and they use it on a real problem with a real business facing a real issue. And so it's great because it gets them to use, apply all the skills that they learned, in different labs or different assignments, but then they get to really apply it in a real world situation, and they get to know those people and know about their organization a little bit, and meet them and network with them. So we are looking, we're always open, and we always want to form relationships. So happy to talk a little bit more about that post panel with some of the participants here.
I might just add one thing. Bella mentioned earlier that one of the challenges of internships is that they're often short-lived, and that's also a kind of a difficulty when it comes to dealing with real data within courses. And that's something we're also acutely aware of, that is that if I wanted to do a real project in a course, it's sometimes very difficult to structure it so I can do it in a 7-week elective when students have 5 other courses. And so there are certainly some ways around that. I think at the back end of a customer analytics practicum, for instance, for those that do the certification, we have a project like that, but they have to go from, problem definition to presentation in 6 weeks, which is, again, maybe 10 hours a week for them. There are courses that lend themselves more to integration from beginning to end. What I found has better success, at least in my courses, is to incorporate a single TRED client in the course, where instead of kind of letting students just bang their head against the wall, is I'll break down the class into components. So if there's a meeting with a client to do problem definition and setting up scope of work, then I'll do that with them, integrate, show them how I would do it, and then go back. And then we take that scope of work and I'll do the next step, whether it's data cleaning, they'll do it, and then we'll reconvene together so they can see sort of me doing it and them doing it along the way, so that we can reconvene and they see somebody else that can actually do it. So they don't just kind of, they need to get constant feedback along the way, which is something we're kind of experimenting with. So that, in many often like in class projects, we see a whole lot of like, you do the project, you get a little bit of feedback at the end, but you're kind of uncertain. I think getting that semester long guidance as to how to adjust along the way can help them integrate. But yeah, I think there's definitely appetite for more, company-led projects, but the difficulty is integrating them, and especially in the MBA program and electives that are like 7 weeks, right? When they have 5 other courses. And so one thing that I don't know how, that depends on the programs, that's interesting, is also internships that might be longer in nature or span during the school year, so that students can continue working on these longer projects. Typically internships are meant to be summer, 8 weeks, 16 weeks, kind of hard to do anything meaningful at times. And so I like when I see students that kind of keep going with their companies a little longer, because that often means that there's meat that needs to get done, right? There's something that needs to happen. So I like that too.
Would any of you want to comment on, folks from the industry want to comment on what Simon just talked about other strategies in order to meet the students at that level? Bella, you want to talk about it?
Sure, I can. So, I mean, it sounds great. I gotta say, like, yes, but the problem is kind of merging academic timelines with industry timeline. And a lot of that times that doesn't meet up very well.
Mhm.
And so really when we get an intern, we're not going to give them a real life problem that we're trying to solve right then and there, because, it's just not, we're not going to be able to meet our deadlines. So it's much more of this is something that we did last year, right? And give them like the problem and whatever, and coach them through that. So I think that is more, that's more amenable to, kind of the program that Simon is talking about. But yeah, I think that the struggle is really trying to match up academic timelines with the industry timelines, which are usually very different.
Right, and so as a follow-up, I wanted to ask you guys about, as we think about folks, especially alumni who are on this call now, and they may not really have had any analytics background or skills when they were doing their MBA or the mid-program or other types of programs. So what's your, any strategies for them as to if they really, there are a couple things here. And this is basically follow up on one of the questions that one of the audience members actually had, is if somebody is in a particular field of, business field, and they want to completely switch their career to analytics, what would be some of the things that they could do? I mean, what would be your advice to them? So we could start with maybe Jay.
Yeah, as that was a huge career switch for me, going from musician to data person. So thank you, Georgetown. I got my ROI, as expensive as it was. I'm pleased in the long run. I think it would be, find someone and say, like, who do you want to be when you grow up, right? You've got to find that person, dig through their LinkedIn and be like, that's the job title I want, or that's the thing I want. And then, get that one-on-one guidance. Because if someone was going to ask me, oh, I want to get into, let's say machine learning, but right now I do pricing analytics and I mostly use spreadsheets. Like, the first thing I'd probably say is to my data modeling point. I remember the book now, like find Sam's Teach Yourself MySQL in 10 minutes, or SQL in 10 minutes, right? And start there and get certain data foundation things and then onto machine learning and other things. But I guess my point is I'd be able to give them very, very specific knowledge based on my industry expertise and help them get a curriculum that's more personalized, because you can do all this stuff on Coursera, or you can find resources anywhere, but you need that sort of, effectively like therapy or counseling or guidance that's really one-on-one catered. Someone understand exactly what you know now and exactly what those weak spots in the interview are. And you could, you can do that by, other people in your class or other classes, but find that person who's going to help you. And if someone reached out to me who was wanting that guidance, I mean, we're all here talking, we're happy to talk here, but I'd be happy to help them, right? It's not asking for something that's unreasonable to ask of someone. So that's how I'd approach it.
Eureka?
I gotta
Yeah.
say, I think it was Eureka that said that, there's nothing that takes the place of, just practical doing stuff. So, to Jay's point, you take a SQL course, you take, some kind of like technical course, and you just start finding data sets and playing with them, right? Like write code, write as code as much as you can. You can also, if you're, working at an organization currently and trying to switch into analytics, you can always talk to the analytics organizations. You can always, like shadow them. You can always say, okay, what are the skills that are needed? Like, what are you looking for? Definitely find somebody to mentor you in that organization that you're in. But I've got to say, when I went to Georgetown, data analytics wasn't even a major. It wasn't even a thing. So I kind of got into it it was a very interesting situation. Basically, I was working at a .com startup back in 2000, and I was in the finance kind of like business development area, and my friend left the company who was in charge of business intelligence, which is what it was called back then. And the CEO asked him, who should take over this position? And he said, Bella. And so they asked me if I wanted to take over business intelligence. And I'm like, sure, what's that? And so like I was managing a department where my employees knew more about my job than I did. So like, it was really all about like asking questions, like sitting with everybody to say, okay, what are you doing? How do you do this? Can you send me some, some sample code so I can play with? Like it's really all about kind of doing.
And Eureka?
Yeah, so I'll start off to say that it's rare that careers are like a straight line from where you start to where you end up. And I'm going to say like 20 years into my career, it's probably still not a straight line from this point forward. And it's all about like the types of shifts that you take within your career, because again, it's not a straight line, are based off of the level of risk that you're willing to take at any point in time. Like if you're already in a certain career trajectory and you want to suddenly make a major right turn and start over, then something like a boot camp around analytics, around big data, like that might be the best place to go, because you wanted to go through a major shift. You're willing to take on that risk, take 6 months out, or like, let's say a few months out of the workforce, but then be dedicated to a new career path where they're going to find you your first job. Otherwise, it's actually better to do what has already been mentioned, figure out a way to first being aligned to the department and the role that you want to be in, do a little maybe like paired programming or just like be mentored, and then take on a project maybe on your own that lets you try out the skills that you just were mentored by. And then you have that demonstrated portfolio of what you've accomplished, and then either they will pull you into the position, which actually is, especially around analytics, believe me, people want to pull you into these positions. So you'll either be pulled into the position, or at least you can show that you are capable around this. So again, it depends on the amount of risk that you're willing to take in terms of shifting career.
Right. Jennifer, do you want to add to that or say something else?
I think everyone is spot on, right? It's build your foundational skills to whatever degree you need to. Find a mentor. And I think the third thing is don't say no to opportunities. So people will say, hey, do you want to try this? Hey, do you want to do this? And say yes and do it. And you may find something you love even more than what you thought you were going after. You may find you get experiences that help shape what you know and build your skill set. But yeah, I'd say the third one is don't say no.
So one of the questions that we get as academics is, do I need to do a master's program? Do I need to, or can I just do like a 12-week certification program and be okay with it? Like, so I wanted to get your, I get that quite a bit, and I'm sure Simon and Greg would get that. Or, if you just take 2 courses, is that enough? I know that some of what you guys are talking about is that it really depends on what you want to do. But what would be your take on that? So I'm going to open that up to all the panelists here and see if if you have a comment for that or a response for that.
I guess it depends on what level you want to get into, right?
Mhm.
If you're willing to start as a junior analyst, maybe a 8-week course or a 12-week course is enough to get you enough technical skills to get there. If you are, already, at a certain level in your career and you kind of want to go a little bit more horizontal, you're going to need to do a lot more. So it depends on what level you're trying to get into.
Got it.
Analytics.
Anyone else?
I'll add another thing is just having done the coursework on its own, when it comes to an interview, that won't shine just by itself. You need to be able to talk through your process of applying the skills, the insights you got to, and you need to show that passion around that work, just taking the course alone. So that's why I'm saying, like, make sure you're applying the knowledge that you get. So whether you learned it through online, like self-paced coursework versus a boot camp versus you did it within the job, you just need to be able to speak to it. Again, just seeing a certification on its own, it might get you in the door for interview, but it won't get you past the interview into the job.
I think the 12-week or 3-month or whatever long courses, they work great if you're trying to make a pivot within your current organization. So if you're trying to sort of steer your path a little bit differently, but if you are trying to change organizations and change jobs at the same time, I think more is required.
Others, Simon or Greg, do you get those questions and how do you answer that for the students?
I can speak to the MBA. Greg, or do you want to go first?
Go.
Yeah, we get them a lot. I mean, I think there's part of also, I think students being afraid of starting on their own. And to be frank, it's not like in an MBA program, we're going to get students to become to the point where they're expert Python coders or that, they can create a very efficient relational database from scratch. That's not necessarily within the scope of the kind of time, but what we do try to do is give them the basics so that they have enough foundation to not be scared by it, and in some cases seek it out on their own. And so I think the goal is often that. And from that perspective, I think what we're looking for is convincing them that they can learn on their own and eventually apply it and seek out those chances. We do get questions, and I use some of these certifications in my classes. I'm teaching digital advertising. I get everybody to take still, 10 years later, AdWords and basic stuff like that. And the reason that I get them to do that is not so much because it's sufficient for them to be able to run an AdWords campaign, but that it gets them less scared to talk about it. It gets them familiar with the KPI, so they're not intimidated with some of the elements that it would have to get to be familiar with when running it on their own. So I think ideally there's this combination that others have talked about, which is often coming in MBA programs through clubs and others, where they're going to get started learning a little bit about the courses. They're going to have a project in the course, then they're going to seek something at their internship when they can apply it in, let's say now Python, instead of doing it in Excel the way they've done it their entire lives. And so I think there's a little bit that emphasis of like over repeated practice, the ability and confidence to use it in real settings that also needs to come through the entire duration of these graduate programs. And I think some of that is necessarily needs to be coming from students as being proactive in seeking out these chances. But I think some of that is, again, just repeated exposure through the programs that gets them to play with these certificates, again, just so that they are comfortable doing it on their own too.
Yeah, I'll just quickly follow up. I think, it depends is the answer that keeps coming up. And I think it does, especially, Yuri mentioned, your level of risk and how much you want to risk, in terms of your time and your career shift. But I think also think about the level of structure that you generally need to, learn certain things. Or, some people I met are very self-motivated and will blow through every, self-guided study guide, and they can learn it all very quickly. Others need more structure, and they need kind of what Jay mentioned. They need people to distill the information because they're too busy, or they have other commitments in their lives, or whatever, they're working. And so they kind of want to know, what should I really focus on? What should I really take out of this? There's like, 100 technologies and programming languages I'm hearing about. What do I need to learn to get moving, And I think that structure it varies by, people have all kinds of different ways of learning, but also other commitments in their lives, that sometimes a structure that's really kind of, all right, every Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing this. Every night we have classes, and then I'm going to get through it in X amount of time, works well for some people. Others, like a rapid Excel kind of certificate in a month or something, could also work well. But I really would kind of evaluate, what's working, what works best with your life and your lifestyle, and also your method of learning.
Got it. Thank you very much. And so I want to make sure that we are taking questions from the participants that are here. Let's see. Lauren, how are we doing that? Any questions from the audience?
If anyone has any questions for the panelists, feel free to submit them through the Q&A function.
Okay, so while we wait for the questions, there was another question that came from the audience, which was earlier, which was about what kind of key metrics should folks be thinking about when they want to advance their analytic skills within their current organization where they are at?
I can take that. I think basically there's always basic metrics, right, that we typically track, but it's how many clients are we new clients are we attracting? How are we growing them through our loyalty ecosystem? How are we handling, identifying and handling at-risk clients, and how are we trying to reactivate lapsed clients, things of that nature. But that's not really the interesting piece of analytics, right? That's just kind of automatically tracked, so you kind of have an overall health of the client, if you will. The interesting thing is when you're looking at, okay, what's driving the behavior, and how can we make decisions about that client behavior that's going to impact sales in a positive way? And what is the role of each individual program or benefit or whatever we are implementing as a company as a whole? What is the role of each of these to drive new clients or loyalty or sales or engagement in some way? I think that's where the more interesting analytics is really about the strategy behind it. It's not about the KPI. It's about what's driving the KPI, and how can we use the analytics and the data to figure out what our strategy should be.
Got it. Others? Yuriko?
I'll chime in. So I came from the startup industry before I came to Amazon. So two completely different sides of, in terms of company size, in terms of experience. And I'm going to say this, that just like what Bella was saying, there are some core sort of metrics that your company is probably looking for. The really obvious ones might be around revenue, it might be around user base, but then like based off the stage of the company, there might be different metrics that are that you should just ask about. Like there's nothing, and if anything, you are showing your alignment to the company to say, what are you shooting for at a company level? And then how does, let's say, a division, how does a department align to the overall company metrics? So it could be for some startups, they're actually looking to grow user base more than revenue to start off with, based off the stage of the company. It could be that they're looking for renewals to be able to show investors that they have a repeatable product before they ever look at revenue. But the other thing to pay attention to, again, every department, every role within the company might have a different way of flowing into the company level metrics. So it could be that for the software department, you're looking at reducing number of bugs that go out. It could be that they are looking at number of features that are released within the year. It could be that they're just looking to grow headcount before they can even develop anything. So just ask, what are the departmental goals and metrics that lead into the company level ones? And then what is it this year versus what it was, what's it going to be next year versus what was it in the previous years? And you can really see the trajectory and how companies, they organically shift throughout time. So it's just good to ask.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I tell everybody who starts on my team to do two things. First is to make sure that they understand how their client makes money, because it's different based on your industry. It's different based on your level of maturity in your industry, right? It's just different. So that's number one. And then number two is to also try to make sure you understand all of the different levers that can affect that ability to make money. And I think that's a good place to start when you think about any kind of analytics, because at the end of the day, the goal is to drive business outcomes, whatever they may be.
Absolutely.
When we do product experimentation at Facebook, we look at metrics and counter metrics. So we're looking at what number do we want to improve positively and what number do we want to like not mess up, right? So I think, and we're also very diligent about defining what the goal is before, because you can track everything, right? Like you can, what's this number? Is it up? Is it down? Like, and if you can imagine, like, is it up day over day? Is it up week over week? Is it up month over month? And you can just like, you can go insane looking at all these changes. So if you're really focusing on, what number do you want to prove, how much, and defining that success, and then sort of what's the, oh no, I inadvertently messed something up with this experimentation, right? You can imagine, I don't know, launching, right, a product feature and like you get more usage, but people use it for less time, something that simple, right? Those might not be the impact you want, is more bad users, so to speak, or whatever it may be. But really setting those goals and thinking about the good metric, the bad metric, and framing everything in that, you'll be very data driven and be making good decisions rather than just talking about numbers that change.
Thank you very much. So we only have one more minute left, and so I would like to summarize a couple things that we have discussed for our participants here. One, I'm sure that people want to think about the skills that they could gain that would help them in this analytics world, if they are thinking of going there. So one, we heard about SQL, SQL, that is, we heard about data modeling, and then understanding where the data sources come from, data munching, that part of it, which is a little bit more technical. And then the other side of it is storytelling, right? Taking your insights and taking your outputs and then really like bringing in the insights and thinking about the domain knowledge of it. How is this going to be utilized? Where is this going to be, having an impact as we think about the bottom line and all that? And then the second thing I think that people would be interested in here, which we heard from all the panelists, is about where they could go for either a degree or other things that they're looking for. So here we heard mostly it really depends on what you want to do. So you look at what kind of career you want, whether you want to shift completely or augment your career within where you are at. And then based on that, you find maybe some kind of a peer or a mentor that you could talk to. So based on that, you could start looking at whether it's a structured thing that you would want to do or an unstructured, and go from there. So practical and applied part opportunities also we heard is very, 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 very important. So whether you get it from Kaggle data, or you are doing some hackathon, or you are taking your company data and trying to do something with that, all of that is very important. Whether you're doing a master's program or a certificate program within your MBA, or or other types of analytics programs, getting that applied skill is very, very important. That's what we heard. So, with that, I want to, what a fabulous group of panelists. Thank you all very much. It has been a pleasure, and I'm sure that our participants got a lot out of you all. So thank you very much for this, and Koya Saksa. See you then. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining us today. This was great. Thank you so much. To all our attendees, we are going to send out the recording in the next few days, as well as a post-event survey, which you can find using this QR code right here. We encourage you all to take the survey and let us know what you thought. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.